Hey, good morning everyone. Happy Tuesday. We're out here in the really hot sun. You might ask, why are you covered in some weird white shawl? Well, all my clothes are hot and I can't just take my shirt off because I'll get like a third level sunburn. No thank you. So here I have a reflective white cover. I recommend it in the summer. Anywho, out here again trying to work on the vehicle. That's the thing about this channel, is very random. It's just my farm. I do random things, right? So, fix the AC. It works amazingly, so that is incredible. It is ice cold, so cold in fact that I had to turn it off. Glad that worked for 14 bucks. Not bad, right? Saved ourselves about 85 bucks or whatever. 100 bucks at a mechanic to do the same thing. Not as good, I'm sure, but whatever. Now, moving on. I'm out here because on my return trip yesterday from the test, truck started overheating a little. Well, this will be the third time this summer. The thermostat in this truck is probably original. It also has about 400k miles on this motor. So, it runs amazingly enough, right? Limps along. But I'm now changing out the thermostat. So, my mistake, I'm a newbie auto mechanic. When I changed out my clutch fan with thermostat, I was like, oh, I already changed the thermostat. Yeah, no, there's probably like multiple thermostats in an engine or a vehicle, truck. So I'm changing the thermostat that tells the engine when to let coolant flow through the motor. That's why my truck is overheating. So, getting to changing it. Here's how we do it. Changing the coolant on a 2001 F150 5.4 liter Triton V8 motor. Whew. Here we go. This is what my engine looks like. If you're looking at the right video, yours should match-ish. So if we look in here at the passenger side, we'll go down here, and this is the radiator behind this fan shroud, okay? We can see it right here. Now, if we follow it down the side, we can see that there's a drain. I have just some random plastic hose connected to it there, you can see with that clip. And that white threaded piece right here, if I can even point to it without, right here, is the petcock valve, or the flow on-off, if you want to think of it that way. So I just went from underneath. You can't really reach it here. I'm trying. You can see my arm is totally locked in under all this. Can't really get further. I can turn the on-off valve, but that's about it. So what you got to do is you got to come over here to the passenger side front right, and you just reach right underneath this by this shock, and you'll be able to see the radiator, and you just pop on the hose, or don't use one if you don't care, and it can just drop right here. Pop your hose on, then come back, undo the screw right here. It starts draining out. You're going to need to undo this to make sure it can drain all the way and not create some sort of like vacuum or whatever, trap air in the system. Now, there's tons of ways to do this. I'm not doing a complete flush, okay? This is just how to change the thermostat. So I'm draining as much as I can from the system so it don't gush out when I pop the thermostat off. Now that we've got the coolant drained, it's taken me about 15 minutes, okay? So you just open that valve over there, wait until it stops coming out, and then start working on this. The thermostat is right underneath here. This metal piece with this clip with this giant heater hose, okay? That's where the thermostat is. It seems really easy to get to, but you got to take most of this junk off to even access it. So, flathead screwdriver, take this clip off, loosen it. We're going to pull this off of the mass airflow sensor, whatever it connects to in here. Jiggle this, and it should disconnect, alright? Now, we come over here and take it off of this side, so we pull this full thing out. Okay, so in order to get this manifold off, we have to take off a couple small bolts right here. They are 8mm. I really suggest getting like a ratchet or something like that to break them loose, but after that, I mean, they're really easy. They don't get that corroded or anything. You can just loosen them the rest of the way with your fingers. So that's one. Lucky me, I'm actually missing my second one, so I'm already 2/3 done. And then there's another one over here. This one can be tricky. Oh, it's tightening it. Okay. There we go. So then this cover comes off that shows the motor size again. Hopefully this matches. And since we're talking about wrench sizes, if you want to use a wrench for that down there to loosen it up, it's 3/4. 8mm. Flathead number 2. Okay, so now that this is exposed, we can get more access to this bolt right here in this plate, alright? We might be able to get away with not actually taking this off, but if we were to loosen this clip right here and just move this out of the way, it would make it a lot easier to work on this, and it just takes a few seconds. So I'm going to do it. I recommend doing it too. So we're back to the flathead screwdriver. Just going here to this clip, which we're going to loosen. You can also use a wrench if you want. I don't know what size it is. It's probably a 10. Okay, so you just loosen this as much as you can, and then this rubber thing will just pull right off of this right here, like that. Now, we can just pick it up and kind of put it out of the way, over there. See, everything's still connected, it's no big deal. We'll check those hoses afterwards anyways. So, if we take a step back and look at this, we can now see the giant radiator hose that comes and carries all the coolant that's hot right to where the thermostat's going to be, okay? So, we have to take these bolts off after we pull this plate off, and it will come right up. If you don't drain your coolant first, coolant is going to dump right out of here, and a lot of it. So that's why we do the coolant drain first. So if any does come out, it's not as much. Alright, let's do this. For taking off this right here, it looks like it's going to be a number 8 as well. There are 3 bolts for the bracket. Not quite sure what it does exactly. Maybe that's what they use just to hold the thermostat down inside. I don't know. Take these 3 off, and then we'll get this plate off. After we get all of them loosened, I'm a big fan of just keeping the parts where they can be, not lost. I take this one out, and I leave that one in the corner so I can basically just like, well, if I loosen up more. So you can, well, not going to work this time. Alright, once you have the 3 bolts off, this bracket just lifts right up out of this position. Set it aside so you don't lose the bolts, or the bracket, I guess. Then you're looking at the last piece you need to access before we get to the thermostat. So we're now going to go get a wrench or a socket and driver for these 2 bolts that are right there. And I don't believe we're going to need any sort of pliers to take this off, because this whole thing will lift up in assembly, and this hose is pretty flexible still. Alright, so the size of wrench for taking this off is 10mm. And these are really on there. I'm not going to be able to do this with the wrench. I need to go get a socket and driver. Hopefully yours are easier than this. Just don't laugh at how I have to get to a 10mm socket. I have no idea where my 1/4 inch drive extension is, and I can't get in there with just a tiny socket. So, This beast it is. Let's hope I don't shear my socket off. I honestly thought I was going to break this. Be very careful. Look how rusted and corroded this was. If I wouldn't have been gentle, I could have sheared it, you know, whatever. It's not in the best condition. Definitely like clean it up, lube it before you put it back in, but it looks like it's in a corrosive environment, so there's not much you can do, right? Antifreeze, water. So it was pretty difficult to take off. Now I have one, going to get the other, then this thing should pull off. Thermostat comes out, new one comes in, do it all backwards, and it's done. Alright, so for the coolant replenishing process, we're going to need antifreeze mix, which is mixes right here with any color antifreeze. That's really important. It's pretty much pure. It's not colored at all or pre-mixed with water for different types of vehicles. Obviously you need the thermostat, which is what the main part we're changing out. This one comes with a seal. Alright, so there's the part number if you want it. Also, need distilled water. That's a really important ingredient. Most waters have mineral buildup and stuff, and that can just shorten the life of your system and your radiator, so we don't want that. So, that's what we're going to need for the coolant. You might need a lot more than this, like 2 of these and more waters, depending on the size of your system and how much coolant you actually dumped out. Got both bolts out. Once this one was out a little ways, I was able to switch to my tiny driver again, thank God. It was a lot easier. This one's in a lot better condition, obviously. I don't know if it's newer or just in a better place and whatever, right? So, now that we got those out, we can look over here to where the thermostat is. It should just lift right up, pull aside, and that is the issue. Okay? So now, look at the box, it kind of looks the same, right? Cool. So I'm going to open this box up, not over a giant engine, so if anything else is there, it doesn't fall out. Okay, it's one piece, the seal's right on it. So, okay, this little thing clings around or whatever. Sweet, so okay, I'm going to set this here. Whatever, just set it in the box for a second. Wipe your grimy hands off so you don't get too much engine dust inside. Now, this should just lift off. Should just lift off. It's never easy. Woohoo, I got it! Thanks, Bianca.
Uh-huh.
New one! Wow, it's gonna be really hard to press in there, huh?
Mm-hmm. I don't even know if we can. You see how big of a difference it is?
Oh my God, they better not have given me the wrong one. Famous last words, right? Well, we're now like 2-3 hours later. They did give me the wrong thermostat. Maybe not technically wrong, but this is the wrong diameter on the seal. This is disposable. And they're supposed to include another O-ring that actually fits my, you know, my truck. But they were no help on the phone, let me tell you. Yeah, put everything back together. Dump that coolant that you drained back in your truck and drive down here. And then we'll give you that O-ring. Luckily, I have incredible neighbors. So I called him like, Larry, help. He happened to be at O'Reilly Auto Parts. So he was just like, what's the year of your truck? I'll just get you another one. He just showed up a few minutes ago. Would not let me pay him. We're kind of helping each other out back and forth, I guess, huh? So here we go. This is the new thermostat that he just delivered. And this is all you do. You take it and you drop it in the previous hole. And that is how easy it should be. Then the O-ring just kind of gets put in place here around the edges. Make sure it's, you know, pretty much straight. Then what happens is, once we reinstall this piece here, it will clamp down that O-ring and flatten it out, making a nice seal, much like what eventually happened to my original, which if you look right here, it kind of looks like a flattened O-ring, because it is. So now put this on top, put the 2 bolts in, take the black bracket, put it in here. We're now in the reverse step. Shouldn't have been this hard, but you know, part stores sometimes get you. Here we go. Alright, I started to thread them back in. They were a little difficult. Made me remember that I was supposed to coat them with a lube of some sort. I don't have much around here, so I just used some white lithium to help it go in. So, back to it. Alright, got that reinstalled, torqued down. Don't have a torque spec on it, just, you know, enough so it ain't loose and enough so I don't have to get a breaker bar out later. Now we're back to this bracket. You don't have to do this part, but I like to. Make it a little cleaner than it was before, so I got a couple paper towels. I'm just going to scrub it down a little bit, get all the grime off, and reinstall it like that. Try not to get too crazy, because I mean, I could start going in the engine compartment and cleaning everything, but let's not. It's not bright and shiny, but there's a model number under there. So now, set it in place. There we go. Reinstall the bugger. Now that we got the stabilizer bracket installed here, it's back to the giant airflow. Just going to take it here, kind of position it back where it was before. And we're going to make sure that this lip goes over the flange on the throttle body, I believe this is. Kind of line this up here. There we go. Alright, now I come back with a screwdriver, tighten this clamp up, install this clip here since I'm at it. Alright, then, if you want to, we have this to install with the 2 remaining screws. And then we go to the coolant. Got this installed, got this tightened down, got that tightened down. Now that we're here, we're about to put just the engine cover back on. Thought I'd take a moment just to remind y'all that these are vacuum tubes here, and they probably got moved and or popped out when we were actually taking this and folding it back. So just make sure that these are popped all the way back in like they should, and that they don't have any form of big gap or anything, okay? Because these need to be nice and tight. There we go, just kind of push them back in as much as they can. Same with this one here. And now we're good. Now that we got all this stuff installed and tightened down, we're going to go back to the fluid location here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go in here, reach down, and tighten up this petcock valve so that any fluid that we start putting in here doesn't just spew all over the ground, right? So again, it's a 3/4 wrench, so grab your 3/4 wrench and make sure you actually get it tight, because it's a pretty easy nut to loosen, and I bet someone somewhere lost all their fluid because of vibration on the road, and this thing wasn't tight. As I was saying, that's tight enough. Don't want to over tighten plastic because it'll shear. Then we'll be in a huge pain. Okay, now go down here, pop that drain tube off. And that's that, okay? Now, what we need to do is we need to fill up the overflow tank with coolant. Let it fill as much as it can, then start the vehicle and keep on filling it. This is the overflow tank. It's on the driver's side, right by the hood opening area. So do all this when it's cold. It's bone dry because, well, we drained it all into the ground, right? Not the ground, the container. Now I'm going to go grab my mix and get started on filling it. Alright, if we can focus on these instructions, basically what it's saying is on the fill step, need to use a 50-50 mix minimum, use this coolant and distilled water, run the engine to get on operating temperature, heater on high, then shut it off, allow it to cool, and check the mixture. So basically what they're saying is you need to get your heater on so that the coolant actually goes into your heater core block area. That's part of a normal radiator flush/change, so we're going to have to do that anyways because we've pulled coolant out of that area. So I'm going to dump in, this takes 50-50, okay? So 1 part water, 1 part antifreeze. I have 1 gallon of this, gallon of water. That's how it's going to go. So I'm going to pour in half of this, half of the water, the other half of this. Then I'm going to take the water and pour it in here, swish it around, then dump that in the overflow tank. So let's get it going. If you're not really good at freehand pouring like most of us, you can just make like a quick little funnel out of a water bottle. Not a Pepsi bottle or something, because we're not mixing Pepsi and antifreeze, we're mixing clean water and antifreeze. So there we go. And now I can just transfer it freely without worry. So I put about 50% of this stuff in. Now I'm switching over to the distilled water, alright? So now I'm going to put half of this in. Again, it has to be 50-50 mix. So half of this and half of that, which means an equal ratio, alright? So, ish. So as long as you start with and end with 1 gallon containers, you should be fine, right? Alright, so that's about half of the water. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and put the rest of the antifreeze in, then put the water in the antifreeze container, shake it, dump that in. Alright, so if you're doing it right, you won't be doing what I'm doing. You'll actually have as much of this as you need. But I had some old green concentrate lying around. Not old, just, you know, not brand new. Lying around, and so this is the same thing. It needs to be mixed 1-to-1. So I'm going to use this container, put half the green stuff, another half of the water in, and then dump that. I'm now going to start my engine and start burping the system to get all the coolant I can in there. Alright, so the majority of it's done. Now comes the moment of truth. So we're going to turn the heater on, okay? So that means to warm on max, that would be high, and panel or whatever you want, okay? So here we go. Alright, there we go. Now we're going to go into the engine compartment. And we're going to watch this. And it's going to slowly go down. We're going to keep it topped off. It'll just start sucking it down when the engine gets hot enough to the heater core need it. Just keep your eye on it. It'll start sucking it down once it gets warmed up, and after it stops drinking it, you know you're good to go. See those bubbles popping up? That's the air being burped from the system. That's why we're doing this. Every bubble means more coolant able to get where it needs to. It is worth it to do this for sure. Oh, look at that, swelling a little bit too. So now it's going to start drinking it. That's how it goes. Back in the cab, check to make sure that your temperature goes all the way up to normal operating temperature, that the air coming out of the vent is actually hot or warm. It should be set all the way to max, so you should have no problem with that. Once this is done, check the fluid a couple more times, top it off, go give it a test drive, and we should be good to go. Not too bad as long as you get the right thermostat to begin with, saving us some more money. Also, hopefully the truck won't overheat now. Here's hoping. Alright, it's been about probably 10 minutes if I'm honest, a little longer. Took a while. I ended up hopping in here, putting in neutral, putting my foot on the gas just a little to help the fluid circulate. Lo and behold, boiling air starts dumping out of this thing. So I know that the coolant has now reached the heater area and can, you know, basically pull heat from the block to here. Now I'm going to shut the vehicle off, let everything equalize, cool down, come back and check the coolant, and call it good. Alright, waiting time. Alright, about 20 minutes have passed since I heated it up and everything like that and shut it off. And if we went in here and look at the coolant level, we would see that it's about half empty or so. I'm not sure if I can really see in this picture here, but that means that once the heater actually started getting hot, it drained probably about half of this reservoir. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it up to the topping off point, put the cap on, and I'm good to drive. Of course, I should check it, bring some coolant with me just in case anything goes wrong, but that is the thermostat change. My overheating woes should be behind me. Have a good afternoon, everyone.